Sicily pumps it down the line. Port had their chance, but the Hawks hang on by 3 points. Amon celebrates his 200th with a win. Oh, so close to Port Adelaide. This is why we love coming to the footy.
Alrighty, hello and welcome to the CREEDCAST. As always, my name is Dave, and as always, we thank you for joining us as we gather here this evening, Tuesday the 21st of April, to review what was both a heartbreaking but also morally rousing loss to the Hawthorn Hawks on Saturday afternoon. A scoreline of 13-11-89 for the Hawks, just too much for our 13-8-86. As one that was not at all billed, a game that was not at all billed as a game of the round, became part of kind of a trilogy of incredible games that occurred on Saturday afternoon into Saturday evening. I think the combined margin was like 13 points between the three games. So great games, and we were a part of one. Unfortunately, just on the wrong side of the scoreline. JB, good evening, my friend. We're far more excited tonight than we probably thought we were going to be when we recorded a preview on Thursday, about talking about this one.
Hello, Dave, and hello, everyone else tuning in. It's great to be with you all. I'm much more excited tonight than I thought that I would be. And it's good to see some things come to fruition that we can actually talk about that we may have even not predicted, but hoped for, I guess, would be the better way to put it. And some of that hope was displayed by our Port Adelaide Football Club, like you mentioned, which was fantastic. I'm feeling a little bit of pressure. I know there's a good contingent of people who are also keen for our episode on this game. So I hope we do it justice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot to go over, and a lot of areas, kind of ways to angles to attack the game in different areas. But we'll certainly give it a red hot crack. There's certainly lots to get through tonight, so we'll try to do it with as much efficiency as well as depth of kind of just engagement into the game as we can. I will start, and thankfully this won't take too much time tonight. It felt like we spent half of the podcast episodes last week talking about the Zak Butters umpire saga and all that stuff, but we found out last night, of course, that the appeal had been upheld, or the appeal, Port Adelaide's appeal against Zak Butters' umpire abuse charge, was successful. Of course, they very, very much centered the appeal around their kind of annoyance at Jason Johnson, tribunal member, former Essendon player, of course, who spent, debated during the appeal, but 20 to 25 minutes in his car driving to an open inspection while on the tribunal hearing. Of course, he dropped out for a minute here and there. And Port Adelaide basically just argued that tribunal situations of this nature require absolute engagement in the process. And when you've got people, whether it be the head of the chair, I'm blanking on a name, that had an engagement to go to after it as well, and that's why they couldn't get the reasonings out until late into the next day. Jason Johnson's, leaving from work to go to an open inspection, so clearly his mind is elsewhere. Regardless of how much he wants to say, his mind's elsewhere, and that was the core of Port Adelaide's appeal. Of course, their King's Council member and his dogs, Labradoodle. Good jokes about the secret agent Albert possibly being involved. Port Adelaide to successfully overturn Zak Butters' appeal, and for me, and I'll let you go in a moment, but for me, and we'll get into the semantics of it maybe for a minute, because a lot of people are arguing the terminology, but I'm saying he's cleared, and I'm sticking to that because that's exactly what's happened to me. How do you feel about it?
It's as good as that for me too. We can all just fucking move on from this debacle, because that's exactly what it was, a debacle. Yeah, semantics, technicalities, all of the above. I think their starting point and what they chose to be their main focus of a mistrial, for all intents and purposes, was a smart move.
Miscarriage of justice was the official terminology used by the appeal.
Yeah. Just really laying it on thick, just to drive the point home, which, I think the broader AFL community would agree that it, like Jared Waitley said, it was a schmozzle. So Justice is served. Zak doesn't have to pay his fine. Yeah, there's the technicality or the semantics of whether, he still did the thing or if there was a miscommunication. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. The AFL wants to move on. Seeing a conspiracy theory that this has all just been part of some grand plan of being 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. Like, no one's wrong. It was it was a miscarriage of justice, as you said, that, muddied the waters, and it's better if we all just move on, which, look, wholly I agree with.
Yeah. The thing with the term the cleared and why I used it, and a lot of people and a few people said, well, he's not cleared, it was a technicality he got off on. But I think that there's a couple of key points there. The fact is, they've tossed out the case, they've dismissed the case that he was found guilty of. So if he hadn't been found guilty last week, then we would have said he was cleared. Now that case that he was found guilty of has been thrown out, the charge has been dismissed. So we're back to that square one. And the AFL was actually offered the opportunity to retrial, like the appeals board actually recommended, go ahead, retrial it. But the AFL, I think, went in with the understanding that they would not do that if this was the outcome. And I think I've read somewhere that Port Adelaide were well prepared to go further if needed as well. Like they were, this kind of utilizing this technicality was like, if we can get through on this here and then it doesn't go any further, then we've done our job, but we're prepared to go further. But the case was dismissed. It was thrown out. The charge was thrown out. Zak Butters was, doesn't have to pay his fine. And for me, all of that kind of reading between the lines of that and how that's kind of been worded, whether or not and people are going, well, the accusation's still there. Well, that's how it works in all around the world. People can say shit, but if the charge is dismissed or whatever, then what the official statement or state of proceedings is that Zak Butters was cleared and dismissed, and he's not guilty of a charge of umpire abuse. Ergo, he has been cleared. To me, and like people can argue semantics all they want, and what's going to someone on Facebook said what's going to happen to Nick Foot, and I'm like nothing either. Like it's just we're at the point that it should have been like a day afterwards, which was like, well, we don't have evidence. No one heard. Both people are saying they're innocent. Nick Foot can yell to the cows come home that he heard what he heard, but we're at the point now that it's in the past, and that's all we need to worry about. The main thing for Nick Foot now is that his credibility is being questioned about his involvement in sports bet, and that wouldn't have happened if he just maybe been a little bit better about the mediation, so to speak, that could have happened. Game. So, but Zak Butters is clear. So,
yeah, one final thing that I'll say on that topic before we kick into the game against Hawthorn is that it's good to hear that we were actually prepared this time around, because there have been some recent tribunal hearings which have left a lot to be desired from our legal representation, Vegemite lids, etc., etc. So yeah, it's that's one good thing, and yeah, better to be over prepared, obviously, as the saying goes, and but in the end, it wasn't necessary. Just like it's not necessary for us to do certain other things with certain other liquids. And talking about certain other yellow-coloured liquids, we played against Hawthorn on the weekend.
Yes, we did. 10 out of 10 segue. Yes, Hawthorn, of course, knocked us off by 3 points on a Saturday evening by the time the game finished. What was a surprisingly rip-roaring affair and incredible. Like, if you were a neutral and you'd flicked onto that game, you would have, after the first 5 minutes, maybe you would have been a bit worried. But after that, it turned into an incredible contest. Fair bit of good skill on show. Of course, every AFL game comes with it. Some turnovers here and there, but turnover numbers were good for both teams. Disposal efficiency was real. I think we actually ended up, I'm pretty sure both teams 74.8 disposal efficiency each, right on point, which was kind of goes to show the level, when you go on almost 3/4 disposal efficiency, you're doing very well, and both teams being at that level just shows the kind of match it was, and the fact that what was fine margins that decided it. And unfortunately, I think we can kind of just start at this point. I think just experience ultimately told at the end of the day. But when you think about the where Hawthorn are at and the team they've been to start the season and the team they've kind of been building into for the past couple of years, they're right at the point of like, we want to be attacking top four and attacking premiership contention. To go back and forth with them, to kind of break down a few of their systems in the way we were playing and attack the game we did. I think ultimately it was just at the end of the game we didn't kind of have the experience to work through Hawthorn tightening the screws, and that's what told. But we did have a chance to win it at the end anyway. So that's how tight the margins were, despite our lack of experience comparative to our opponent.
Yeah, there's so many different aspects to this game that you can kind of drill down on in regards to where we're at as a club and where Hawthorn are at as a club. And yeah, they are a measuring stick for the rest of the competition at this point in time. We're 6 rounds in now. So as I usually say, and what I've been saying ever since we've been doing this, is the season starts now. Essentially, now is when we start to see teams really come into their own in terms of what they want to do. Personnel permitting, because I know Bulldogs fans are probably feeling the opposite. They're going to have to hold sway, but, been there, done that, kind of doing that now. To an extent. But yeah, I messaged you late. I think in regards to what you're saying about Hawthorn's experience and just their overall consistency, they were on average older and more experienced team. And I messaged you, I think it was in the fourth quarter, and it looked like the game was slipping away a little bit. And just speaking about, I don't think I used the word crumbling, but to that effect, just crumbling under the pressure of the game and the moment and the situation. And the game was full of moments, as the cliche goes, in tight, hotly contested finals-like games. It is just purely about taking your moments when they come. But in saying that, we match up well against Hawthorn, apparently. Whether that's like a fantasy, a false perception, or whatnot, we just seem to have good games against Hawthorn for whatever reason. And destiny was in our own hands. So again, my mind's kind of spinning at where to kind of drill down on. But I guess just for me, and bring it back to this podcast, and another thing I mentioned to you is, like, we've spoken about, particularly last week, as we were coming out the end of those softer games, so to speak, in our draw and coming into a real difficult period, we were just talking about wanting to see heart in our performance and an effort. Obviously, the skills was a pretty big topic and talking point, or the lack thereof in terms of skills. Like, the Richmond game was pretty poorly executed at stages, even though we deserved to win and won by a handsome margin. St Kilda was obviously played predominantly in the wet, but it was our finishing and our execution that let us down at patches. But yeah, for me, this game encompassed everything that I suppose a regenerating team wants to see in their, well, everything that a fan of a regenerating club wants to see in their team on match day. And yeah, the first 5 minutes or 5 to 10 minutes is one thing. And it's something that we really need to address, because from that point on, the people who weren't doing the thing ended up doing the thing quite proficiently and ended up making it a very high plus point in our favour in terms of clearance and stoppage work and things like that. We ended up flipping that completely, and that was the basis of how we came back into the game. The second quarter, obviously, in particular, is a standout quarter. It is obviously the best quarter that we've played under Josh Carr. But one of the more satisfying things for me watching it back was that how I would categorize that quarter was we played smart football. And I don't know about you, but in recent years, I don't know whether it's the coach, the coaching group, game plans, whatnot. And I don't know if this is hyperbole because it's fresh and it's recency bias, but the amount of times that us as fans have come away from a game that's probably gettable, but we've ended up losing. I think there's been an edge of just playing dumb, simple-minded football at times in the past. And in this regard, the second quarter was most pleasing to me because we played in a way that was quite simple yet effective. But on top of that, we executed everything that we wanted to do pretty perfectly. And so when we gave up a 4-goal lead to begin the first quarter, and that's a head start, butterfly effect of football, we ended up negating it by and large by just having one of the most sensational quarters of football that we've seen in recent times. Underdog versus the favourite, all of those things considered, but it was just smart football. And again, we're starting to see the overall structure and game plan appear, how it wants to be laid out when we tick those boxes that we need ticked.
Yeah, that 35, it's a 35-point turnaround that we engage in that second quarter to go obviously 26 points down at the first break to 9 points up at the main break. It is. When you think about that, you go, look, you'd be happy with a 35-point quarter against, the shittest teams in the competition, whoever they may be at the moment. It's well, Richmond are probably the one at the bottom, but not wanting to shit all over them. We didn't have a 35-point better quarter than go it the way we did against Hawthorn. So, it's one of those things. It somewhat beggars belief, but sometimes when you have to kind of lock in against a good team, and there's that little bit of talk about a rivalry with Hawthorn, whatever you want to talk about, but maybe it just maybe Hawthorn just came at the right time as well for us, despite the fact obviously we lost. They came at the right time with us having had a few moments already this year that have tested kind of, there's been questions asked about how we handled West Coast and ironically, we got a fast start against West Coast where the first 5 minutes looked like that was going to be a demolition, and then West Coast ended up winning the game. Whereas this is the other way around, where Hawthorn looked like, people were thinking, oh, there's going to be 100 points in the first 5 minutes. And then, it turns into the game it was. So, I mean, football's a game of AFL football, especially in the modern times, is a real game of runs and engaging in momentum. And when you make those switches coaching wise, how well they kind of engage on field. And just luckily we made a few moves and we can start maybe defensively, because that's where some media talk. Unfortunately, as fans, I wouldn't say we're first, number one ticket holders of First Crack. Well, we do enjoy First Crack for at least a TV show that gives us some statistical analysis. But I was really, really disappointed to see, this game being one of the better games of the round, given just a short thrift on First Crack, where it was 90 seconds at most, that entirely centered itself around the move of starting Josh Lai on Nick Watson, which hindsight's 2020. You can make up whatever you want after the game based on what you've seen. And yes, you look at it and go, well, Josh Lai didn't have the experience to handle Nick Watson, but there's not many. The question I ask of a show like First Crack is like, you say all this stuff, but you don't give us the I don't recall if they gave us an alternative. Like, what would you have done with Port's list if you're a coach? What would your move have been? Yes, we moved Lockie Jones to him, and he had varying degrees of success, but he had his own, moment where he missed a mark, and Watson was able to peel off the back of a pack and kick a goal in the third quarter too. Nick Watson's one of the best players in the AFL, both as a small forward and just a crafty magician of a player. There's a reason he's got the kind of nickname and kind of cult following he does. He's a player that does those things. He's a magical player. Saying that we lost it in that moment is kind of, as to me, as silly as saying, the people that say, well, Jordan Sweet lost us the game or Mitch Georgiades lost us the game. Yes, those are moments that could have helped us get closer to a win, but ultimately football's about sliding doors. And the fact is, after the Josh Lai first quarter, we're 9 points up at halftime anyway. So, we were able to turn it around. And two of those goals in the first 5 minutes come from centre bounce infringements and free kicks. So two of those centre clearance goals of the four they get are from centre bounce infringements, free kicks. So there is a little bit of that to it. And, Josh Lai was his experience or inexperience did show, but I also think he had a few moments. He almost chased. There was after Watson got out the back, Lai almost caught him, and there was a few. I'm not making any excuses for him. He did obviously come off second best. I'm not going to lay the blame at his feet, and nor is that at all. That is just such a small portion of what was a great game, and that's why I was disappointed in the analysis that we didn't get to see, people that paid and do a TV show talking about football at that level, talk about some of the more fascinating parts of this game.
I put it to you in a text message and I labelled it pissant punditry, and I don't disagree with what I said at the time, funnily enough.
Yeah. I don't disagree with past Jamie either.
Yeah, good point, Jamie. But, I mean, it does a disservice to Hawthorn at the very least as well, overall. Like, they didn't spend any time on talking about how Hawthorn managed to hold off the charge that was Port Adelaide, if that's a semi-pun, charge and power. But, so the nuance was completely just checked at the door in that analysis. And like I mentioned to you, him and Kane even doubled down on that pissant analysis on Fireball Monday. I'd spent 5 minutes on it. The game, I know there was a lot of good games, and then there was the one upset out of a weekend of pretty easy tipping. But there was a lot of good games to talk about, a lot of stories to come out of it, obviously. But a fantastic game of football like that, the overall game just didn't get the respect that it deserved. And yet, going back to that decision to match up on Lai, probably the wrong decision. It was a gutsy decision. And again, the nuance is that why was the ball down there so much in the first place? They would have selected Lai to start on Watson. And that, in a way, is putting the onus on the midfield to protect the defence, in which they didn't early. And he was exposed. But, I mean, I just think it's ridiculous. I probably wouldn't have started Lai on Watson, particularly with the form that he was in. But Lai's got speed, and they wanted to test him with the hope that the ball was being protected a bit further upfield. And like you said, 2 free kicks in the centre, straight into our defensive 50. It doesn't make it easy for a lot of defenders, let alone rookie defenders. We made the change. Lachie Jones, I thought, did do well. The free kick was bullshit. So that, take that one goal. Lachie Jones kicked a goal. So we got a goal back from him. A really fucking great goal too. And like, I kind of, apologist cuck perspective, but when he went up for that mark and he dropped it, Jason Dunstall was like, yeah, but you back him in to take the mark. He's in perfect position to do so. And I kind of sit with that. I'm like, go for the mark and fucking take it. Lachie Jones had a good game, I thought. And look, he fucked up. He left his man. You take risk. Like, footy is about taking risks. And Port Adelaide is about taking risks.
Yeah, and just on that particular moment, being that we're kind of talking about defense as well, like watching it back, and it could be just me trying to find a reason for it or whatever. But, Bergman was kind of in a contest with I think it was Sicily, wasn't it, that was going for the mark because they'd thrown him forward a bit. And Bergman was kind of half behind Sicily. It looked like there was potentially either Sicily's going to take the mark or Bergman's going to infringe. So I think Lachie Jones has seen that he needs to come across as like help defender and fly. And he does have, look, it's still one of probably the criticisms of Lachie Jones as a player is like he needs to do what Josh Tracy apparently does and just go out with a soapy bucket of water and take like 50 marks in a row, something like that. But like take the mark. But yeah, beyond that, it's just like if he takes the mark, then we're not even discussing it. It's again, the hindsight is 2020 thing. Like, the criticism is in not taking the mark. It's not in what you did because you put yourself in position and you actually got 2 hands to a ball. So you just dropped a mark. It's not actually the wrong decision. People just like, and that's why it was like Adam Simpson. I love what he does, but I like that Dunstall kind of fought back on Simo kind of saying that was the wrong decision. It's like, no, the decision was right. The execution was wrong. Mm-hmm. That's all that happened there, and that's where it was probably for Josh Lai as well. Like sometimes he was inexperienced told, but if if we're a rebuilding side, let us rebuild and you've got to let.
Yeah, that's it. We're damned
Yeah.
if we do and we're damned if we don't. Yeah, you mentioned that to me as well while we were talking about the game. And it's like, hello, like, McFly, you sound like a slacker. Yeah. Oh, our port rebuilding. Are they like semantics? You know, what are they? Do they know what they are? And it's like, yeah, we played a team with an average amount of like 80 games experience on average or something like that. Yeah, we've got young players in every third of the ground. So, like, yeah, do you want us to rebuild or do you not? And look, in a game that's won or lost by 3 points, there's so many moments, like you mentioned, that you can put it down to. I mean, sure, Nick Watson kicks that many goals, but he shouldn't have kicked at least one. I think we don't feel, and then we win the game. Sliding doors and the butterfly effect. We talk about that all the time, but again, I don't know if this is an apologist way, a glass half full way to rationalize it all, but we kicked 6 goals to no goals in the second quarter. So for all intents and purposes, the first quarter is kind of cancelled out by half time. I don't want to give teams a head start, and that's
plus 9 points up, but that I mean,
and like I'm not saying I want to give teams head starts, but what I am saying is if we go to quarter time at 50-50, a Hawthorn copping a 6-0 second quarter, and you know there's so many things that go into will we get the Hawthorn of the third quarter in the second quarter is what I'm trying to say. You know, you never know what's going to happen in a game of football. And yeah, to boil the whole game down to like a matchup that was less than ideal, and you can probably foresee that, but it's giving a guy a challenge. And at the end of the day, we were in charge of our own destiny with 45 seconds left to go in the match. We didn't take it. It's unfortunate, but how many goalless quarters have Hawthorn suffered this year against any opponent? Like, where's that chat? Where's the contested, back and forth in the third and fourth quarters that deserve their own analysis in their own right? It's just bullshit. But from the defensive point of view, because we are talking about the defensive line, yeah, I think by and large they look good. Aliir has regressed a little bit, but then I noticed his 5th best for champion data player rating at the end of the game. Like, if he's having a less than ideal game and he's ending up, in that region, then I can take that. Bergman looked refreshed, having a set role on the day. Lockie Jones is getting into his spell now, crashing people, knocking them out of the way, kicking goals. Took a couple of marks. He's defending well. I think they held up pretty fucking well considering who we were up against.
Yeah, and I think probably to put a spotlight on something. I think Todd Marshall, particularly in the first half, really kind of had his best like I'm a defender now game so far, considering the opposition. Considering what they were, just the opponent he's having to play and kind of the some of what Hawthorn can do, how he was able to read what they were doing and continually put himself in position to take the intercept marks, and in particular, get involved in the score launch as well. With some, again, we've seen it a few times this year, but he had some exemplary kicks into the middle, which we'll of course talk about the midfield in a bit, and kind of the overall kind of like attack of the game and a real kind of blueprint of the Josh Carr era that we saw in this game. Todd Marshall's kind of key to that because he's the one with the disposal and the eyes and the kind of game intelligence to kind of see what's in front of him and pick up those passes. And I thought between the fact that he was defending well and taking those marks and having a really, really good game. Obviously, I think in the second half he doesn't get as much of it because Hawthorn kind of changed what they're doing, and that's kind of the coaching, the incredible chess match that a good game of AFL football is. But by and large, I think Todd Marshall kind of showed us why, and he seems to be, speaking of players getting into their overs, but he's actually just getting into an entirely new role over the off season and into the season. it felt like a real game where he started feeling really, really comfortable down there as well. Of course, now that he's maybe gotten past that little ankle niggle he had for a couple of weeks as well.
Yeah, there's only so many superlatives that you can label for Todd Marshall's game. It was just a bit of an announcement. Unfortunately, the game has been glossed over in that regard because, he finishes with 8 marks, 5 of which were intercept marks, and just owned that region in the ground for a large period of time. We've all heard that one of the biggest reasons for that move was also his disposal. And there are so many clips that you could chop up to show that he just hitting people on a dime. He's definitely coming into his own, and sorry,
because the bravery to engage in what it has to be the game plan as well. Like, he's not just picking off easy ones going out wide and stuff. He's like these 40 to 50 meter bombs down the middle they're not like, they're kind of uncontested, but they are players that have got players around him. He's just picking off the perfectly weighted kicks down the middle and getting them just past center, and then the next kick from then is into our forward 50, and it's just like it's breaking the lines quickly. And we haven't seen that. Like, that's probably one of the things about our defense over the last couple of years is you've had some great defenders. Alir, obviously, Sava, Zerk Thatcher before his back has seemingly given up on him. That's obviously just me speculating. I still don't know what's going on there, but he's not getting back into the side. But disposal coming out of the back line was always down to your Farrells, your Rosie going back there, or whoever else the Smalls were back there. We couldn't rely on a tall taking an intercept mark and then being able to dispose of it that well. And it's kind of like opened up other avenues into kind of how you can rebound out of your back line. And of course, with the way the Josh Carr team is playing, it's even more crucial.
I think one of the key differences between this game plan and particularly the last 2 years is that for the last 2 years, we were clearly trying to attack the corridor at all costs. And when it worked, it looked great. But I think the difference is that there's a bit more nuance. And again, that smart football characteristic, it's like, yes, we want to attack who doesn't want to attack the corridor, right? It's the quickest avenue to a scoring shot. But it seems that is kind of our main aim in comparison to some other sides in the competition. But we want to attack the corridor as often as we can, with as little amount of possession as we can. But it's not what we try and bite off every single time. There's still room in the game plan to assess other options, but when you've got a guy who's got half a chance up the field and you've got the ball in Todd Marshall's hands to hit him, then they're taking those kicks and targeting those players. They're really going for the throat, so to speak, in regards to the most sensitive part of the ground, as often as they can, but when it's practical, more often than not. And again, this is probably overdoing one very good game of football. We've seen in the first 5 rounds that we kind of don't know what they're trying to do at stages, and then it slowly kind of crept in. And for me, I hope that we can definitely use this as a springboard into the rest of the season, while keeping in mind what we're trying to achieve out of this season, and particularly the player acquisition period at the end of it. But it's just refreshing to see pieces of the puzzle all coming into place. Not the final piece of the puzzle, which is the player that we bring in every year to win a premiership in the eyes of opposition supporters, but the pieces of the puzzle in terms of our game plan. But again, another thing that's satisfying from us in a podcasting point of view is just the discussion of when your best players play well, it just brings you that much closer. In a lower ranked side, it just brings you that much closer to achieving a victory. And again, that's what happened. All our best players played well. And starting from the back line, Aaliyah stood up well, but Todd Marshall just took his game to another level. And when you've got that seniority and they're puffing out their chest, they're executing. I think we've spoken a couple of times about the rising tide lifting all ships.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they give a basis to follow, it's no surprise why your McKinleys, for example, even though that's on a different line, I mean, wings assist every end of the ground, but it's no surprise why those type of guys elevated in a way as well. When your leaders are performing, it's really the minimum you ask for, but it doesn't always happen. But it just brings you that much closer to a win because it sets an example for the rest of the team. And yeah, Todd Marshall in the back line as a senior figure around the club did that just as good as some of the other leaders on the ground, but particularly in his line.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's that lead. It's, I guess, the experience back there as well. I was just thinking as well as you were talking about the impressions of the back line, just thinking to, even just looking at the injury report that came out today, they're talking about the progression of, Asava Adelaide being a few weeks away and Harrison Ram progressing well. And, these are two players that, Harrison Ram was talked about as a possible starter this year until he got the injury. And I think he's injured or he got injured after maybe just missing out in the first week. But then obviously Asava was a big revelation last year for a month or two until he got injured. And those two players are out, and obviously Brendan Thatcher from the year before when he was playing well. Like, we're talking about a defense that's actually had a fair bit of change in such a short period of time. Obviously, Todd Marshall going in there and to structure up so well and play reasonably good football and really, Nick Watson's just the wild card that kind of breaks. Like, he's the game winner. And again, not saying the game was won off his boot alone, but with 5 goals from him, he's had a very, very tangible impact on the game. And you're also talking about just a very, very talented team. Yes, they were missing theirs down back, but we're missing guys all over the field as well. So I won't put too much stock into Jack Gunston being missing or whatever. Mitch Lewis has been playing some very, very good football. Cashier is obviously a very, very good player, and Cashier was really well involved early and got involved in some good score involvements. They've got a very, very good forward line still, despite a couple missing. And then Will McCabe fucking pops up and does what he does, and I even just for that goal, I had when I was watching it, I actually had this come to mind, like live as I watched it. When I watched it go through and the celebrations start happening when Will McCabe, first game, first goal kind of stuff, and I just had this like Ron Burgundy, like, I'm not even mad. I'm impressed. That's good. You ate a whole wheel of cheese. You kicked a goal. You kicked a goal from 50 on the flank for your first goal in AFL football. I'm not mad. It's impressive. It was disappointing that then we go to the next centre bounce and then it bounces forward again. So we go from 6 points up to 12 points down very, very quickly in that moment because they get the next centre bounce clearance. And then I think that goes to Mitch Lewis, who scores from more or less directly out in front. So kind of, it was a game of margins like that where you get those moments. I mean, I guess anything else on defense, go for it. We kind of just naturally move to the middle and go, like, we actually had a very, very good game. It was very, very close in stoppage and clearance, but we shaded both. I'm just rolling up to my stats here just as a starting point. We center clearances, we were 13-11 after starting relatively poorly, and stoppage we win 22-20 as well. So these are fine margins. It means it was a very closely contested game. But considering they did win hitouts fairly well, and we talk about the rucks when we want to talk about them, but that was going to be a battle with the ruck battery they have. But the fact we were able to mitigate that at clearance and stoppage and actually, and match it up with a team like Hawthorn after some of the troubles we've had earlier this year was really impressive. And again, it's a game of fine margin.
One thing before I talk about the midfield is I've seen that Mitch Lewis free kick not paid on many occasions, and I think Miles Bergman can count himself a little bit unlucky. Yeah. He had his arm kind of around the waist of Lewis a little bit, but Lewis actually stopped in his lead to make contact, and there wasn't a lot in it, is what I will say. Yes, Mitch Lewis was playing in front, but I think Miles Bergman defended that ball pretty well and was pretty unlucky. I think umpire kind of got swept up in the moment a little bit. But hey.
Yeah, it goes back to the Dunstall comments after the Lockie Jones free kick, which is a completely separate situation. Dunstall was just like, we've got to watch. We're not making the game too hard for these defenders because some of this stuff's kind of bullshit. Is not what I'm paraphrasing, obviously.
Yeah. Jason Dunstall verbatim.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, no, a very, very good point to bring up. Yeah, because again, it's fine margins and calls like that. Sometimes when you get a 50-50 like that, they make and they don't. I won't get too annoyed at the umpires. They missed a few throws. Obviously, the Lockie Jones and Nick Watson one is a bit egregious, but I'm so used to
that's some bullshit.
Yeah, Bush League Aldrich.
yeah.
So it's Anchorman cast. No, that's a good point to bring up too, because there was a lot of a couple of goals that they defended actually as best as they could, and what are you going to do when the umpires inject themselves in those moments? You've just got to hope that you can win the moments that you do, and we did. Again, we'll probably keep coming back to it. But we did have a chance to win it despite all of that. So
yeah, agreed. But on the midfield, I think I will start with the rucks. I think it was a smart move. No regrets playing the two rucks. I thought while we lost hit out, we saved ourselves wearing down one of our ruckmen. If we stayed just with Sweet, the complexity or the complexion of not only the stoppage but the match could have been completely different. I think they flew the flag as well as they possibly could, and even I think Sweet was still involved in clearance himself. Like Hawthorn may have won the battle, the Josh battle, but I thought picking the two rucks was a wise choice, and they didn't let themselves down. Now, I doubt that we'll see them both together coming into this week, and how often we'll see that is, yet to be determined. But on this occasion, it was the perfect opportunity to play the two rucks, and I thought Jordan and Dante represented themselves and the club as well as they possibly could to even up the contest as much as possible. They lose hit out overall by 14, but all four rucks didn't really have that much of an impact. In fact, Jordan Sweet could have had the most impact out of the four, but unfortunately squandered both of those chances. And the first one, probably expecting him to kick it. Second one, pretty difficult. I'm not expecting a ruckman to kick that, but that's football. But yeah, that's the rucks for me. In terms of the midfielders, the Rovers, the wings, you have to kind of compartmentalize the first half of the first quarter and then the rest of the game. And how much shit do you want to put on them for starting on their heels when they, like I said in our kind of overall wrap, that they won the position, I reckon, for the rest of the game. One thing I will say, and I'm not sure when I was going to say it, but
just before I did take, just before you continue, just for the point about winning the position for the rest of the game. After the first quarter, it was 7-3 Hawthorn for centre clearances and 4-3 stoppage. If you extrapolate that out to the rest of the game, that means we won 19-3 from centre for the rest of the game. Quick math ain't quick mathing enough for me here, but I actually don't think I've got those numbers wrong because of flip stoppage. And anyway, we get ahead from centre and stoppage, and we were behind, particularly from centre clearance. Again, a couple of those free kicks, but to your point, we got ourselves behind. But yeah, I think once the game becomes a game where we're engaged as well as Hawthorn are, we win the position.
That's exactly right. I was just going to spotlight Ollie Wines just before we talk overall. I think the re-injection of Ollie Wines into our midfield has just been such a sorely needed injection of surety, experience, leadership, all of those things considered. But the fact that he also only played 66% game time as well, that's one thing. But I think since he's come back into our side, yes, we've had a couple of poor starts and we've left a little bit wanting in terms of clearance. But I think in the broad scheme of things, I think Ollie Wines is still so underappreciated overall. But I'm just not picking a midfield without him. It's an easy call to make, perhaps, but just wanted to give him some flowers because I think what he contributes to the mix is underplayed and undervalued. And I think we're just a more accomplished outfit when he is in there. I'm preaching to the choir probably overall and with our listeners, but I think, you hear the most overrated Brownlow medalist, or not overrated. There's a connotation like undeserving Brownlow winner or something like that, and it's just I don't agree with it in the slightest, obviously, but it just undervalues his talent as a footballer. And his Brownlow year was fucking sensational. He had his troubles with a bit of injury, but his last 2 or 3 years have just been superb. Like he's just a fantastic footballer.
We've been lauding him quite often over the past few years, and I think at one point during the game it even came up. I think it was in one of those chains of possession that resulted in possibly even Durden kicking a goal after a Todd Marshall exit from the defensive half, and it was a brilliant kick from Wines, kind of just eyes down and just hitting Durden quite well. And they kind of brought. I think one of the commentators, I can't remember which one, kind of muttered about Ollie Wines and his disposal. And you and I for a few years now, or a couple of years, have been kind of saying he's gotten better and he's actually underrated. It's kind of like people, once you get an embedded understanding of what a player is from their first 5 to 7 years in the competition, you just keep regurgitating that stuff. And it's just like Ollie Wines has actually been, he's a hard ball nut winning midfielder. Like the disposals not, but his disposal when he gets the opportunity is relatively good. And he went at 73.7% or something like that in this game, I think.
He did 73.7.
Yeah. So he went at a reasonable pace of disposal efficiency, right on the game average, more or less. For a midfielder kind of playing the role he does, is good stuff, and a very good spotlight from you and yet that leadership coming back into the group after some weeks in which it's been questioned a bit, particularly when he was missing at the start of the year, and then when he was kind of that West Coast game was obviously a big kind of alarm bells game for what we were doing with the mix, and again, midfield mix is just such a quandary because it's kind of just discover it, I get, but there is like just how we're getting him involved, and certainly getting I think both he and I'm just scrolling up to the match stats here now on my Wheelo ratings, but CBAs, because I always love to bring him up. Scrolling up here, he and horne-francis was at 60%, Ollie Wines 67%. So I got my wish that horne-francis went north of 50% CBAs.
I liked the mix.
Ollie Wines. Yes, exactly. The mix. It's all the mix.
It's the mix, baby.
Yeah, tell me what you like. Yeah, but I'll say tell me what you like about the mix, but I'll just say Butters, of course, 83%, and Drew at 80%. And then they kind of went a Jordan Sweet and Vicentini actually split at 50-50 as far as
nice
for the right.
Oh,
yeah. And I do agree, before I throw to you about the mix and everything, I do agree that I don't think this game is played the same way if we don't have the two rucks in there. They kind of had to sacrifice themselves for this game, but they were able to bounce off each other because they had I think Jordan Sweet was at 70-odd% time on ground. Dante was 60-odd. They kind of were able to get their rest, throw their bodies at it. They were never going to win because Ned Reeves is apparently the tallest Hawthorn player ever. And when they lined up at the first CBA, and I saw Ned on one side and Jordan Sweet on the other, and I was like, Jordan Sweet looks small. I was like, oh god, like. So yeah, I'll throw it back to you on the midfield. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of like agree with you on the rucks. It didn't look great at times, but they needed both of them in this game. It's going to be horses for courses for the rest of the year, but they did the right thing in this game with the two.
Yeah, it just meant that we could battle for the whole game, as opposed to tapering off, just having one, which seems like a pretty likely outcome. But yeah, the mix in the midfield, I like. I think as Port Adelaide fans, we do want to see Miles Bergman in there at some time. Maybe some don't. I know that has been flirted a lot of the times, and we don't mind what we see just from you.
Is it Ken Hinkley that said he likes Bergman as a defender better? I think
I think he did actually, which makes it interesting that he was tried in the midfield under Hinkley. But putting that to one side, and the fact that Bergman played a great game, again, having that set role, he's probably had a bit of a rocket, but just was able to drill in on that defensive line. I liked the mix, and we've got the defensive or the contested side of it, but we've got the flair, and this is where Kane Corns is going on about what is it, roadblocks? I think is the connotation that he's giving certain midfielders, and it's like if you're not fast and you don't have all of this, the game's moving in a certain direction, but I think that's still too one-dimensional, that point of view. Like, yes, speed of ball movement is the phrase of the day, and I said it early doors in the season. We're all going to get sick of that terminology, but you have to have the in, and you have to have the players who can get the ball to then give to the speed of ball movement type of players. And I think on the weekend, you're balanced with Wines and Drew with a Butters and JHF. You've got the yin and you've got the yang. And that's not to say that Wines and Drew can't move the ball forward or hit up a target, or even impact forward. Ollie once kicked a goal, so that's nice. It's where I just really like, if you had a full midfield, or should I say a midfield full of just your out and out speed demons, I think that's collapsing when you come up against a team that has the balance. They may be the best speed of ball movement midfielders in the competition, but if they have a deficiency in winning the ball, then, what's the point a little bit? So that's why when after this game and we see the spread of effort, we obviously have our high impact results from Butters and JHF on the day, but they're complemented by the guys who can actually win the ball and get it to them. And they did win their own ball, of course, but the mix was sensational. And just going out from the stoppage directly, Ewan McKinlay had one of the best quarters in the competition over the round for his third quarter, which came at a huge surprise to myself and yourself, and I'm sure a lot of other people who follow Wheelo ratings. But ball don't lie, and I mean, another spotlight is really his elevation in this game. You come away from this game and go, Ewan McKinlay contributed to what could have, should have, and would have been a win, or as close to a win as we could have hoped for, particularly going into the game. You come away from it and go, he had an impact.
Oh, a very, very tangible one. He, had the 12 disposals, which went at 83.3%, which is very, very good. Like, that's what you want to see. He obviously kicks a couple of goals. He gets the first goal of the game, which, by the way, stats guys at Fox were all over the place, because I think when he kicks his second goal of the game, they go, "Oh, that's his second goal of his career." And I'm like, "Well, no, he kicked one." But earlier on, they'd said, "Oh, he kicked one," and they're all over the place. Lockie Jones' first goal of the season, apparently, this game as well. We know that's not true. Anyway, back to the positives of Ewan McKinlay. He's at 83% for 12 disposals. He has 6 score involvements, over 300 meters gained. He has a couple 1%ers. He just does exactly what you need from that kind of position with the disposals he's getting. Because sometimes it can be a bit thankless, but he 3 inside 50s, and I think he has he even takes 4 marks as well. And obviously, frankly, he fills up the stat sheet in a lot of areas positively, which again goes to your point. He has the impact on the game you want. And for a player that looked so out of sorts and really like the stars were in his the lights of top line football were in his eyes against, what was it, West Coast? I'm trying to think, it was the home game.
It was West Coast, but even the Richmond game, I kind of mentioned like maybe it's time to give him a spell, because I think someone else brought it in one of our threads, either on Twitter or Facebook. Just kind of, I think they noted him, and I put my hand up and I was ready to drop him just to get a bit of confidence after that Richmond game at the MCG. Like you said, yeah, the bright lights, his head was spinning, but then he's played his 2 best games of his career after that. So, that's why
the top champion data rated players of the round.
Yeah,
like in the top 40 or whatever it is that Sench Footy account puts up. It was on the second slide.
It was.
Those that follow Sench Footy on Instagram will know, but it's and he always puts the PB next to when people hit the new personal best. And obviously Ewan at 17.7 or whatever it was in champion data ratings was his PB, and second best on ground for us, I think. Well, because I think it was better. His champion data rating was better than Horne-Francis, I'm pretty sure. Was it?
Yeah, it was. And Todd Marshall.
I don't think
how.
Like, if I'm just as a fan, as good and much as I enjoyed Ewan McKinlay's game, I'm like, I'm not sitting here saying he had more impact or was better than Jason Horne-Francis. He had a good impact, but yeah, that's starting to get negative on Ewan McKinlay, which we just want to be positive. He's locked himself back into the side for the time being, you have to say, and
for sure.
He looked calm and composed, like the way he finished that second goal in particular, which could come up later on. We'll see. But he just the way he attacked the ball, and there's a little bit of composure to his game in the last couple of weeks. That's considering how we thought he looked a couple of weeks ago, is really, really impressive. Yeah, no, I couldn't be more glowing on him. I was interested to see when I was going into the stats over the last couple of days. I was like, I think he was pretty good with the ball, and I always look at the game, how the game looks, and then this was a fairly good skill level game.
Mm.
Team stats were almost 75% disposal efficiency, and for Ewan to go 8% better than what a good looking game looked like is a plus point to me.
Yep, yeah, he definitely holds a spot for mine, and then in turn puts pressure on the other wing. If you just wanting to compare apples with apples, which you're not really, because I believe they're given 2 different roles on the day generally. But still, if it is
Jacob Ware had 12 disposals at 81.8%. A couple score involvements, so not as much there, obviously. But he takes 6 marks, has 3 tackles, and does a bit as well. So he just doesn't.
Yeah, I think one of those tackles was brutal too. I can't remember what point in the game it was, but I just kind of remember vividly. Excuse me. But that's the kind of environment that you sit within.
They both have 3 inside 50s. So
And I'm not necessarily saying that I want to drop Ware, but the conversation was 3 weeks ago, because in that Richmond game, I think Jacob Ware played his best game for Port Adelaide. So it was like, Will Lorenz, Christian Moraes, they're knocking the door down, so to speak, after 2 SNFL games. And Will Lorenz had another prolific day out for the Maggies. Not to the extent of those first 2 games, but still was our leading disposal getter. So there is still a little bit of pressure. But yeah, probably a little bit more pressure on Ware because Lorenz is a left footer and Ware is a left footer. But yeah, I think it's just a question mark at this point in time. The fact of the matter is since that Richmond game, McKinlay has elevated his game to another level, which is promising to see. And it actually reminded me of that mean-spirited discussion point that we discussed a number of weeks ago in regards to players who aren't up to AFL football. And then there were 5 Port Adelaide players named in that particular article. And I've written them down here, and I've named them the Can't Play 5. And those names were Jacob Ware, Ewan McKinlay, Lockie Jones, Jace Burgoyne, and Logan Evans. And I think since that, I'm pretty sure that, or it was a discussion on air, and then it was written in print as well. But I'm pretty sure when that discussion was being had, I think Jace Burgoyne was one of our best on for that particular game, whatever was preceding that. But since that discussion has been had, I think all 5 players have played their best games. For the season, I'll put it, not in their careers, although McKinlay definitely has. But Logan Evans had a quiet game this one around. Really oddly quiet game. I don't know if he was given a particular role, like a real shutdown role, but he played a lot of game time and had very little of the ball. But this is coming off the back of 2 very solid weeks for Logan Evans as well.
He had an impact on the tribunal.
Yeah.
I don't know what he was doing out there, but he was pissing off Sicily and was it
Moore? It was Dylan Moore. And just on that, although Logan Evans didn't have, a very prolific game, what I did like and I appreciated is that a more experienced player in Dylan Moore, an All-Australian, punched him in the guts, and he didn't take a backward step. He actually gave it to him and just reminded him of why he was being placed on report, which I admired. He's got
Logan Evans with his short hair, just doing the point.
I liked it.
He's looking a little. He still looks slender, but he's looking a little bit thicker. Like he's looking a little bit more mature, and just him doing the point. A guy like Dylan Moore was just like, "Fuck yeah, Logan."
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, kangaroo and an emu is on the Australian coat of arms for a reason. They don't take a backward step. And Logan Evans in that moment didn't take a backward step. He held his ground. He stood up for the injustice was him getting gut punched. I'm pretty sure he said in an interview on SENSA with Bix and Walshy that he's put on like 6 kilos of muscle or something in the off season, but he's also increased his speed at the same time. So yeah, he's taller than Moore, and he's definitely put on some size. So I appreciated that. Had a very quiet game, but appreciated that moment. And Can't Play 5. I think I'm going to just keep that list of players, and perhaps we'll just kind of touch on them as the season goes on and see if premature chat is just premature chat, and if certain players actually, once they get into the season, start to play well. Funnily enough. But we should probably move on to the forward line.
The one I'll say, like, Jace Burgoyne probably is having a bit of a downtime with his disposal, and he's getting a little bit of flack for that. Just branching off your list, but he still kicks the goal and has some good moments. But just he just needs to work on his disposal a little bit. But again, I don't put that down to a can't play thing. That's just a figure out the disposal, because we've seen Jace Burgoyne earlier in his career actually have a very, very good disposal efficiency. So it's just like he's a bit out of form in that area, but we know he can do it, and he can get better at that again. And he's still, again, we're talking about young players. We're talking to guys that are 20, 21, 22 years old. Like, we don't need to get to it bent out of shape about them yet, particularly when they're showing us things in between overall that we're far more impressed with. So, forward line. God damn. I have some stats here. Just to branch off of. It's more a thought, and I'm not sure if this will go anywhere for this game, but Mitch Georgiades last year was third in the AFL, my man Mitch. Third in the AFL for shots on goal per game at 4.9. Obviously, now this year has to be framed with the fact that we are seeing a year where players are getting a lot more, like there's some players taking having some and it is also just 6 games in. But this year he's 14th in the list of shots per game. He's actually averaging a half a shot game a game less. And he hasn't had any shots. So in the top 100 players in the shots per game average, he is the only player in there that hasn't had a shot from general play. It is just interesting how Mitch Georgiades is being it's not deployed, and I actually think he's obviously playing fine. I just think it's interesting as a way to talking about how kind of the slight evolution of the forward line already, that Mitch Georgiades, he only had 21 shots from general play last year, but that's more or less almost a shot from general play a game if we're talking about it that in that kind of way. But this year he hasn't even had one from general play yet. Again, only one in the top 100 shots per game players that hasn't had a shot from general play. It's a weird anomaly because you'd think at some point he would have had a ground ball or just gotten one, and played on and had a shot at least. And then he's obviously averaging that half a goal less per game. That has to be understood in the realm that we are also seeing Jack Whitlock's in the top 50 for shots per game, as well as Jason Horne-Francis last year. Mitch Georgiades was the only Port player in the top 50. So it is just speaking to the slight evolution in a forward line. Obviously, we can touch on it. I know you and I were texting as the game was finishing. Mitch Georgiades missing their goal annoyed us just because we want to see us win.
Yeah, of course.
Calming down, I will just say we can just start at that as a point before we get to the broader forward line. I wanted to bring up that point about how we're structuring it because I think it's interesting because Whitlock and Horne-Francis both kick goals and like that in this game. But just on the shot to win, again, we don't blame moments on a lost game. Mitch Georgiades did not lose us the game. Jordan Sweet didn't. Josh Light didn't. It is just a technical thing watching it because I've watched it back a bunch now.
Yeah.
He has a lean. He does his body, to me, his body.
He drops it. Well, he drops it on the inside of his foot. Yeah. I've definitely watched it. But his two other goals were sensational. Like, this is the thing. I tell you what, though, the moment that Mark Howard said, Mitch Georgiades, he's a great kicker of the football, I said, I just went, oh, for fuck's sake, he's not going to kick this now. I don't know if anyone else had those thoughts. I was like, fuck, shut up. Shut up. And he'd already kicked the two straight. So I was like, fuck, he's got a miss in him. He hasn't missed yet today. So it's disappointing. I kind of already allowed myself to feel that he would miss to dampen the blow.
Yeah.
Because overall, like, we played a good game of football. Sorry I'll let you get to your point, but I was just too proud of the overall effort to let that moment negatively impact my feelings. It was disappointing, and I wish it would have been fucking sensational if he kicked it. But I'd already resigned myself to the fact that he'd miss. And I was leaning into we've played a good fucking game of football. Took it up to a contender in that moment, and I tried to just protect myself a little bit.
Shout out to, I think, Jack, I might mispronounce his last name, but Jack Trahan on Twitter and Instagram. He'll if he hears his name, shout out to you for this. Please let us know how to pronounce that.
Are you one of the OGs and you deserve respect.
Remembering how it looks, but he posted. This is just a complete side note. He posted I think a screen grab from possibly Big Footy or Reddit, one of the two, like Port Reddit or something like that, of someone explaining ultimately results. Maybe an honorable loss is better for draft positioning, and it's very. And I know Jack's a big NBA fan, so he kind of understands modern sports from that spectrum, which is sometimes hard for me to do, but I also do understand it very, very well because I follow a lot of wearing an anti-Laker Blazing Club hat right now, so I follow the NBA quite and draft sports, and obviously the AFL draft is inspired by the American sports model as well. So there was kind of that aspect of it too, when in the cold light of day you go, a win again, but the win would have been a buoyant result for the club. But I think the players are mature enough to understand they did a good job on the day, and I more feel for just Mitch in that moment. He's such a great player and deserves to have that kind of because it's probably the one thing. Maybe he's got a Mark of the Year award, and he's got some of those accolades, and he's got some bags already. Want to start seeing him kick some more bags, but he kind of deserves that kind of game-winning moment as well. So it's disappointing for him, but hopefully he learns from it. And it's just probably the one criticism that goes to Mitch still is just working on that routine and that kind of drop of the shoulder and lean and stuff like that.
Yeah, for the straightforward ones. And he did kick one straightforward one, but just, the straightforward one. Scott Hodges reincarnate. You need to kick him.
Yeah, that's what's separating you from you, Jeremy. Like, I'm looking at the top two players on the shots per game, like Jeremy Cameron and Jack Gunston, averaging 6.6 shots a game at the moment, and they're scoring at a very, very good rate as well. So that's kind of what's separating. You have Jeremy Cameron kick 7 goals straight, and Jeremy Cameron's kind of sometimes gets the opportunity to play a bit closer to goal at times, and same with Gunston as well. But so that is part of it. You see them generally dob a lot of those ones. So it is just part of the story with Mitch, but at the moment, but he's still a young player and he's going to get better. Whitlock, we talked about him a lot in the preview. He has some great marks and great moments. Obviously, kicks a couple of goals. Misses one that he probably should get as well. Again, he's young, even younger than Mitch. We'll forgive that a bit, but again, it was a tough game up against a very, very, very good. And I guess this is half midfield, half forward line, but I really, really enjoyed how our entry into 50 was working and how our forwards were. It was a very, very tough game with, Barras is in great form. You got guys like Battle and Co down there as well. It's we talked about it. This is a very, very good backline. The first great backline we're coming up against this year, in pretty good fitness as well. And we saw guys able to kick goals, whether it be horne-francis, as a default, he's a forward as well as being a great midfielder. Whitlock and Mitch all were able to kick a couple of goals, as well as Durden pops up with one and a few other, obviously the ones around that as well. We get it franked by a few midfielder goals, as we talked about as well. But obviously we don't kick a winning score, but we kick a decent score. We kick 86 points at a reasonable clip. It was a set shot regatta at both ends of the field as well, but we convert well, particularly in the first half, and a very, very good learning experience for the forward group.
I think I've mentioned it before. I'm taking a fucking 80 to 90 score game, at 80. This score, I'm taking a hotly contested game. That's just got a bit of everything. Then one that's 130s a piece. We nearly kick a winnable score. And yet again, and I've brought it up once or twice before, but 2 goals to Jack Whitlock, 2 goals to McKinlay. We spoke pre-season about needing midfielders to just contribute their fair share if we're going to kick more winning scores. Horne-Francis kicks the 2 goals.
Averaging a goal a game.
Butters,
gather around.
Yeah, Butters, baby. Yeah, Horne-Francis 2, Georgiades 2. And then, Durden with the 1 goal, but he also has 2 goal assists. So then overall, we've got Georgiades for the season. This is at 14 goals, Durden and Horne-Francis on 10, Whitlock on 9. Unfortunately, Lukosius is on 6 before he gets injured. But what we're seeing is that nucleus of forwards who are all regularly contributing to our score, which again, I think is a game plan. It's a result of a shift in game plan. We brought it up maybe 2 weeks ago. I can't remember when, but we've come from a long period of time where we, by and large, just have one major focal point and everyone else falls in around that. And there's years where, other people have good, prolific goal-kicking years outside of Charlie Dixon. But they spoke about it in commentary in this game in particular. You mentioned Barras, Josh Battle, Sicily when he was down there. Really smart to, again, assess all the options at hand. And we were targeting players who, whether it be a mismatch with the Jack Whitlock goal in the pocket on McKenzie, or if it was a contest that was more 50-50, if not 55 or 60% to a 40-45% on their end in the contest, we're targeting those matchups to give us a better avenue at having shots at goal instead of blazing away and getting picked off by Barras, Sicily, and Josh Battle all the time. And they had their intercepts, which they were obviously going to get within a game of football. But what I'm really enjoying is that even spread of contributors. It is a fundamental basis of a successful team. If you've got an even spread of contributors, you're taking the load off of a Mitch Georgiadis, and he wants to be the man. He is the man for all intents and purposes. He's the cornerstone of the forward line. But he's not the be-all and end-all, which I'm enjoying. A young Jack Whitlock is, from my opinion, is having a fantastic entry into the AFL, and surely he's not far away from a Rising Star nomination. As a forward, as a young forward, it's pretty hard to compare statistics when you come being compared to young midfielders or young halfback flankers that rack up disposals. But he's consistently kicking goals, and he's doing it against defenses that have some talent. But his talent in isolation is providing him those opportunities, which is fantastic. But overall, we're getting some midfielders contribute, but we're getting that even spread of our forwards who are paid to kick goals contribute from week to week. We may not be kicking winning scores from week to week. You know, we'd love that extra 10% out of everyone. But the basis of what we're trying to do is there. And I think we've seen it. And I don't know if it's an anomaly that in most weeks, we don't have one standout forward. We typically have a contribution from two or three, if not more, to an extent. Just before I let you take over, I saw a funny screenshot from some pillock on X who wanted to. The discussion was about how much of a astute pickup Corey Durden has been, and how it is paying off for us so far. And this fucking idiot took a screenshot of Corey Durden's key statistics from the AFL app, and for disposals and handballs and kicks, it had below average. But what this fucking idiot put up on social media was goals 1.8 per game, which is rated as elite. So the point he was trying to make is Durden's been a dud, but in the screenshot that he provided was that Durden is rated elite for the one statistic, the one key statistic that he's getting paid for, and that's to kick goals.
Yeah,
I didn't engage. It just made me laugh, like how fucking idiotic some people can be in their grasping at straws to put down a player in an opposition side without realizing that, yeah, you're kind of making our point for us inadvertently.
Yeah, particularly when it comes to small forwards that play the Durden role, you're going to be below average in a lot of statistics. But then the one area that we want you to be the lead in, if you're going to be, playing that role, is goals, and we're all pretty happy, I think. And a shout out, it's Travis Wakeling, isn't it? That's putting up a lot of
he wasn't. Sorry, he wasn't. Just not to confuse people, he wasn't the person that put up that screenshot. He's the one. He's one on X who's advocating heavily for the Durden trade.
Yeah, sorry, yes, definitely make that clear, because he's doing a very, very good job of advocating.
Shout out to Trav.
It was a very good,
good supporter of the show.
Astute. Yeah, Jamie's feeling much better this week.
No tissues inside.
Yeah, bring up the point, because you're talking about the forward group and just the way that particularly Whitlock, what he's added in marking. And marks inside 50 last year were at 11.7 marks inside 50 per game. Obviously, in this game in particular, we take now I'm just rolling through all my different bits, but we take 12 marks inside 50 for this game. We're averaging 14.5 for the year. So we against a very, very good defense, we match up. Like if you want to do the NFL thing and compare defense versus defense when they're not playing in the same spot in the field or whatever. But both teams take 12 marks inside 50. I think for our team to take those 12 marks inside 50. Get the opportunities. Obviously, one of those marks was Mitch Georgiades, having a shot to win the game. again, we put ourselves in position to win the game, and obviously didn't execute. But we took the marks inside 50 through good disposal coming in, having the options, and having smart forwards kind of get into position. And then there's a little bit of magic, and I think there was the mark earlier in the game where it was like, horne-francis went up and Whitlock came down with it. I think it was done. I can't remember who was commentating the moment, but kind of just, Whitlock kind of just stood there in a pack, and kind of it somehow ends up in his hands. And there's a lot of things you can teach, but there's a lot of things that players just come in with an innate ability to get into position to take the mark is very, very good stuff from Whitlock. And it's aiding us being almost 3 marks a game better inside 50 than we were last year.
That's a great shout on marks inside 50. Yeah. Just having that extra player who can clunk it. What I loved most, I mean, that mark was fantastic in its own right. But what I loved as an extension of that was how proud Jason Horne-Francis was that he saw Whitlock had come down with it. I've just got some goosebumps. I mean, that's the kind of softy that I am to my core. But yeah, watching the replay of the mark, that is, and seeing JHF is just Jeff is on the ground, and he's like, what happened? And then he noticed Whitlock had taken it, and he's just clapping and hurting his own hands, like, feeds the soul.
Yeah, there's some good leadership coming from GF on the field at the moment. He just seems to, now that he's gotten into his work for the season, gotten past the injury and everything, and just seems to be comfortable now. It's got to be mentioned now that he's coming into his work and playing really good football, that horne-francis at one point in the preseason, went off just because he had felt some discomfort in his foot, and he's kind of, was overthinking. I mean, it's not overthinking. He's just concerned about an injury that he was recovering from. And I remember, I think I was over in the UK at that time when I just woke up and saw there was I think it might have been Eddie Corns. They posted a video on social media of JHF on the bench, and concerns over his foot, and I just went, oh God, is this going to be another setback? And he's going to be out for the first few weeks of the season. He's obviously had his preseason within the season, but the last couple of weeks he's just come into some ripping form, and we'll get to our votes soon enough. But it was a difficult week on votes because while a lot of players stood out and the standouts and whatnot, there's just it was actually some guys contributing in different areas, and certainly JHF and his ability up forward again, and then in midfield is just an incredible game. Is there anything else particularly on the forward line? I think we've hit. I did actually know there's one. I'll hold on that until we get to segments, because he'll pop up there for me at least. So I will hold. But overall, I think for a game that was so tightly contested, lots of pressure, ultimately experience told again. Both obviously the back end of the game, we kind of we tired and the legs tired, and we were coming out. I think Hawthorn had 8 forward half intercepts in the last quarter. That kind of really was what they were able to build the pressure and whatnot. I think just with how our forwards battled with their defense, how our defense battled with their forwards, and the midfield battle that we to your point edged. I think it was a really, really positive performance, and you kind of look at that and go, there's growth in a lot of young players out there. Some that didn't have great, like you look at your Jace Berger and say didn't have a great game, he still kicks a goal and has his moments, and these learning experience.
I think it just comes down to the disposal for mine. I think with Jace, I think he ended up with 6 marks. He's not disposing of the ball as well as he would have, but he's not giving up on the contest, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. If you watch it back, he's still following up with second and third efforts, which is the least that you can ask for if you haven't disposed of the ball as well as you should. Or, I mean, it may not even be off the back of a poor disposal. It's just in general play as well. He's still willing himself from contest to contest. It just purely comes down to disposal at the moment, which is leaving a bit to be desired. Just before we move on to segments, I just want to talk about that final play, just in the prism of changing mindset and changing game plan and just smart football. Again, it may be recency bias because we played a good game and we're like, maybe Josh Carr is the Messiah, even though we didn't win and we still sit in the lower reaches of the ladder. But Again,
He's just a very naughty boy.
So the fact that the reason why we got it in Mitch Georgiada's hand was because Hawthorn had parked multiple players down back, and instead of just brainlessly surging it forward, we actually decided to go around the mass to spread them ever so slightly enough to catch them off kilter and pick a few holes in their defense. We can all just picture those games in the past where we've just bombed away for the opposition's key intercept defender to just continually mark it and rebound out and us get it back and surge it forward. Another tick to what we're trying to achieve, maybe recency bias, maybe a change in attitudes, just the presence of mind to go around the mass to find those holes. I mean, I think it was Joe Richards who hit up Georgiadis? He'd tried one or two of those kicks earlier in the game and they didn't quite come off. So it was good to say that he still had the conviction in his own effort to try and pick it off again. And it worked. Should have been a goal. Wasn't.
Incredibly high pressure moment as well. Like that's an incredibly high pressure moment to like eyes down and find space in a very congested forward line to find Mitch finding that space, and then
in the end it seemed like a pretty regulation play. Like
that's what good athletes do, and that's what we as fans have to remember is like things that we see look easy on field are actually made to look easy because they're so good at it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, he executed it very, very well. Did Joey? We'll get to the segments in a moment where there's a few players that haven't even come up yet in the podcast that will get their flowers in the segments because I think there's a few moments and certainly in the votes as well. Before we get there, just a quick shout out to if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Pods, watching on YouTube, wherever you are, you're obviously probably and you're doing it regularly. You're probably a part of the subscribers and likes and follows on all those platforms. But if you're not, if you're new, welcome. Thank you. Thank you for joining us in this journey that is following the Port Adelaide Footy Club. But whether you're new or old alike, like and subscribe on the platforms, whether it be Apple Pods, Spotify. I think Spotify's follow, Apple Pods is subscribe. Whatever the platform dictates that you do that, it allows the podcast to feed into the algorithm. Give it a 5-star review on those platforms as well. We really appreciate it, and that again helps push it out there. YouTube, like the videos whenever you watch them, or if you just come across them. Even if you listen to the podcast on Spotify, but you've jumped on your YouTube account and you see that the episode's up there as well, like them. All these different things in this modern world of media and social media and whatever else, these things just help feed the algorithm. And even if you've already watched it, if you like it and the videos rack up likes, it helps feed it out to other people that might have Port Adelaide in their algorithm but just haven't come across us yet. So anything you can do like that, we're obviously not asking you to go out and do it, but if you just have those moments that you can do that really, really helps. And of course, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky, whatever it may be. We do have the engagements popping at the moment, and we really, really appreciate all the comments.
Yeah, numbers have been great. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, no, we do. We really appreciate it. And it's fun for us doing this. Just a couple of humble Port Nuffies on a podcast. And we do appreciate the fact that so many people follow and engage and get in touch with us and enjoy the content. So, but without further ado, let's get into the segments. And we're going to be starting with the Wilson Gray.
Down, Gray doing brilliantly, getting through to Montfries. That's Gray at his best.
Wilson kicks hard and kicks truly.
Wilson Gray Award, of course, the award for efforts on the field that just give us the tingles. I get to go first this week, and I'll just touch on last week's winner. Was, I think, a very, very obvious winner in Zak Butters' tackle. His little just chase down, kind of like a fucking velociraptor in the fields of the lost world, just reeling Naz in on the boundary. Surprisingly, didn't go 100%. Sometimes there's certain weeks we do the segments, Jamie, that I go, surely this is 100%er. And there's still a couple of people voted for my nomination. Of course, we take it in turns in who nominates first each week. Jamie got to go first last week and nominated the Butters tackle, which I thought was just a standout moment for the year, let alone the game. But still, a couple of people voted for my pick of Lockie Jones bursting out of the back line. So I appreciate those couple of votes. But of course, Butters wins. I get to go first this week, and I'm going to go. We talked about Jace Burgoyne a little bit, and I liked your kind of, it's a little bit of foreshadowing you did as a storyteller that I am. I love a little bit of foreshadowing, and you're talking about Burgoyne's second and third efforts. And my nomination this week is going to be Jace Burgoyne's tackle on Sicily about 5 minutes into the third quarter. And it's kind of one that is about second and third efforts.
Watson, you can still get out of trouble. Back to Ward. Spin, spin, spin. Sicily attempts the same. He's done.
They're up for it, though, aren't they?
Great defensive pressure. Good tackle from Burgoyne.
What does Hawthorn do here to defend these plays?
Burgoyne long down the line, straight to
Terrible
him.
kick.
After Lockie Jones actually harries Watson on the boundary, and kind of Nick Watson he's looking like he's going to shake and bake, but he doesn't actually get away for this moment. I think he handballs it to Ward, and there's pressure on Ward that comes from Burgoyne, and Ward gets it to Sicily, and Burgoyne gets around Ward and continues on and wraps up Sicily and gets him holding the ball like plumb, just holding the ball. Great tackling technique again. Those that are regular listeners of the podcast will know the stiffy I have for a Jace Burgoyne tackle. It's very, very good. He's just got great technique. He rarely ever. He's
The
never
stiffy
even
John
in
Cobb.
danger of. Yeah, Port Adelaide man. Wasn't
Tis.
he? I think he's. Yeah.
Twas.
Twas. Never mind the little jaunt he had down at West Lakes. But yeah, that's my pick. Jace Burgoyne's tackle again. And just a great moment for Burgoyne in a game that was up and down for him, but he's still kind of the fundamentals of his game were on show in that moment.
Great pick. Missed by me in my shortlist, that's for sure. So that's what I love doing it. We always bring something different in what we remember. A good shortlist though, I might add. Coming from a good game of football, but
there's a lot in my game notes that I type out quarter to quarter. Just as a little insight for the people listening, I know Stu, shout out to Stu and Jess that we caught up with over Just Gather Round, and they asked us a little bit about the podcast process. And like my process watching the game is when I see a moment as I'm typing away during the game, I just type WG and then a bunch of question marks after it so my eyes catch it when I'm reading back through my notes. And there's a lot of those. Some games there's not many. There's some of the bad ones.
Oh, no.
But this game,
no, some are hard. Some are a hard slog for WG. But Marshall's kicking up the guts. Butters clearance from the center about 7.5 minutes into quarter two. But what is easily missed is Willem Drew just taps it ever so that Zak Butters can just hit it at absolute fucking pace. And I'm pretty sure we get a mark and a shot on goal. Durden's 1v2 on the wing in the last quarter when the heat was rising. But got to go Whitlock's. I'm going to go Whitlock's contested mark. I love that moment. I've already brought it up. Going to peg that one for my Wilson Gray nomination.
Bounce. Bangs it after streaking out of the middle. Hawthorn defence under pressure. Horne-Francis went up and Whitlock came down with it.
He's an impressive young player. There's a centre clearance that we haven't seen much of from them, but in this quarter, 4-1, as you said, Simmer, and doesn't it change the nature of the game? You could argue a free kick against Horne-Francis for taking battle out of it, but don't begrudge a young man taking a contested.
Love that. There's been a few Whitlock mark. That's probably the second Whitlock mark nomination this year, which goes to show.
Yes, West Coast game.
Quality of his marking. Yeah, the quality of his marking, but just like the fact that he's doing that in those moments, in those contested moments, with it kind of that one that you're nominating is just there's a cluster of players, and the fact he's able to go up and get those, and we're still talking about a player that's very, very early into his work, still developing as a body, let alone a forward. So great pick by you. That was definitely in my shortlist as well as the Durden 1v2 was on the shortlist as well. I thought that was a really, really good moment. Again, just one of those ones that doesn't show up in the stat sheet for fucking the Pillock on Twitter that you were talking about. At the end of the day, I think does he even get a disposal officially out of that? I'm trying to think.
I think so.
He does, or
no, I think it just turns to a stoppage.
Yeah, exactly. So there's no stat really there apart from maybe, I don't know, but there's
It might be a
an
contested
entire
possession, but not a disposal.
Yeah, exactly.
In
So
fact, I
that's,
think
again,
that's certainly what it is.
yeah. But again, like, it's just at the end of the day, maybe it goes, he's got a low disposal game. He gets one contested possession for that moment. But the gravity of that moment for what it does for the game is like very, very good, because, you 1v2, you're expecting Hawthorn to come out with the ball out of that, and he brings it to stoppage at least, and ultimately helps us set up for the field. So it's, again, moments in game, stats do a lot for us, but stats have to be compartmentalized within the nature of what we're seeing on field, and that's how you truly read a game. And again, we're just two nuffies on a podcast, and we have our opinions on how that is, but I feel like we do a pretty good job of kind of understanding how those things work in relation to each other. Two very, very good picks for the Wilson Grey, so I'm looking forward to seeing who wins out this week. I think it obviously last week was very, very obvious. I think this week it'll be interesting to see what the people reward. So before we get to the goal of the week, as usual, I remind people we're obviously recording on Tuesday evening. I get the Wilson Grey and goal of the week nominations in a video package into the Instagram stories on Wednesday evening. So Wednesday evening of the 22nd. So if you're listening to this as soon as it drops on Wednesday morning, keep an eye out on Instagram on Wednesday evening or into Thursday. They start there for 24 hours. Go in there. There'll be a poll. You can watch the package and just click on which one you prefer in the poll, and that gets the vote into the system for the back end of the year when we ultimately vote for our winner for the entirety of 2026. All right, goal of the week. Press the sting. Jamie, get ready. You get to go first.
Humphreys has kicked a goal. Unbelievable. Haven't seen anything like that. It's gone at right angle.
Flashpoint. Stevie Mobley. What a time! Oh! He is floating on air now.
Jamie, you get goal of the week first. There's plenty of contenders this week.
Plenty of contenders, like you said. Set shot regatta, also like you mentioned in this episode. Some nice set shot goal kicking. But for the pressure of the moment and the overall complexion of the goal, I'm going Lachie Jones crash and bash, dip dive, dodge, and whatever the 5 Ds of dodgeball are, for him to put us within reach of a win. Just a personal opinion and a slight side. I think if Lachie Jones can get it together, I think he would actually make a pretty good midfielder with his power. That's a conversation for another day, but moments like that kind of reaffirm it to me. Just the confidence to run at it, dodge the opponent, and slot the goal. I loved it.
Yeah. Marshall Barris gets an important fist on it. Moore props over and spins back in the other direction. Jones, his moment arrives. Jones kicks it. They're not gone yet, Port Adelaide.
From Barris. And then Dylan Moore needed to keep that ball inside. Great play from Lachie Jones.
First goal of the season for Jones. What a moment to snag it.
Yeah, and it probably happened on the outer wing when they could have gone skinny and down the line, but I suppose the risk of the lasso rule.
Yeah, definitely in my short list. And the 5 Ds of dodgeball: dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. Of course. Because he does, like, that goal's great because he hits the contest and actually taps it out first. And I can't remember who does the handball chain in between, but like he basically is the one that actually creates disrupts the play out of from.
Yeah, because Dylan Moore, like for all intents and purposes, it's his ball. But Lachie Jones just comes in, knocks it out of his hands.
Yeah, and then someone gathers it, handballs it back to Lachie, who then does a little shake and bake and slots it very, very confidently. And gives us ultimately the chance to try and go ahead and win the game, which we're almost able to do. So, very, very good pick from you. I'm going to go another young buck that is in your the can't play 5 in Ewan McKinley. And shout out to I think it's there's a couple on Twitter. I think there's one of the followers, Alicia. Shout out for listening regularly. And I think there's Dorothy, I think, as well. If I've got those names wrong, but they both responded to one of the posts over the weekend and said, "I'm nominating Lachie Jones' goal."
well,
And then
there
the
you
other
go.
one said, "No, I'm nominating it." And then so the other one went, I know I nominated it first.
I'm
So
Spartacus.
Lockie Jones. Yes, I am Spartacus. So yeah, Lockie Jones' goal was a very, very popular pick. So I had it in my shortlist and was likely, depending on where you went, but I thought that might be your pick anyway. So good stuff. But yes, I'm picking Ewan McKinlay's goal.
Oh, he's hooked around the corner. Chance now for Port Adelaide. Falls to McKinlay from range. What an effort that is. Worth celebrating from Ewan McKinlay.
It needed to go wider and longer, the kick from Eamon, but this is a great finish. Just his second goal in game number 7. Entitled to be happy with that, the youngster. Yeah. That's a beauty.
Of course, coming off some very, very good work from, I think Jacob Ware was actually involved there as well, but and he picks it up and he's able to slot it from 50. A very, very confident finish again. Lockie Jones, confident finish from McKinlay. I like that he kind of just assessed the options, and at some points we were very, very good at eyes down in this game, but at some points you just have to go for goals when you've got the open space and you've got the leg to do it. And he finished comfortably from kicking right on 50. It was a no doubter. So and at a great moment when we needed a goal as well, late in the third quarter, we're a bit over a goal down and just needed one of those sparks, and that's ultimately what set up a last quarter that we're able to stick right in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very mature moment from McKinlay. Obviously, we've spoken about the fact that, he's 23. He's played a bit of football. He is raw in an AFL sense, but yeah, in perfect conditions under the lid, you can always get a bit more on your kick. Take it, sink it, and celebrate in kind, which he did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very passionate celebration. And of course, his relatively simple finish in the first quarter was good. But again, he kicks the first goal of the game in a moment where the pressure was right on for us to respond to an onslaught. So just his, again, composure in moments was very, very impressive. So yeah, a good, it's a can't play 5 goal of the week.
It is, yeah, yes.
Which I'm very, very excited about. So yeah, all good. Player of the year, Sting, let's go. Now it's time for the CREEDCAST Player of the Year voting. Alrighty, I get to go first this week on the Player of the Year vote. And of course, for those new to listening, Jamie and I do 1 through 5 voting, with 1 being our 5th best on ground, 5 votes going to the best on ground. We don't know who's voting each week. We don't know each other's votes each week, and we rotate who goes first. So I'm going first this week. It's a tough one. I'll obviously leave honourable mentions until after you've gone. So, but I've gone possibly a little bit of a wild card with my 1 vote. But once I started diving through the stats and a little bit of eye test, I wanted to reward this. And again, honourable mentions will reward honour those that missed out in this spot, because I think it was a bit tough. But I've got Joe Berry for the 1 vote. I've done it. I think this is the first time he's popped up in the votes. So
I think so too.
Congratulations to Joe Berry for popping your cherry. I just wanted to be able to say that.
Fuck.
But look, I'll go through the stats here and kind of explain why. He had 18 disposals at 72.2%, which is, I think his disposal numbers just alone are one of the best. Close to, we had a couple up the top, but then there was a bunch between 9. Ollie Wines on 19 disposals, down to Joe Berry on 18 disposals, about 6 players in that group. But he had the 18 disposals at 72.2%, 8 contested, which is 3rd best in the team. He had the 7 marks, he had the 4 tackles, he had 6 inside 50s, which is 1st in the team. He had 1 clearance in there. 7 score involvements, equal 1st in the team. He had 13 pressure acts, 7 were defensive half, which is 6th in the team. He had 6 ground ball gets, 4th best in the team. He was doing a lot of connective tissue stuff, which kind of, he obviously had his shot on goal, which again he missed. He's gonna tighten up on that. I think that the fact he's getting the opportunities, it's just like the finishing. And again, often those finishes are general play ones, which can be 50-50 chances a little bit. But I think once he gets better at that, he'll lock in on that and be devastating actually. But I just looked at that stat line and just saw like him pop up in, top 3 or, some areas first, best in the team, as well as disposal. Some of some of the areas where he was able to goal assist as well. And even in that chain where it was Todd Marshall kicking it into the centre, it was Joe Berry that took the mark on the ground, and then on his knees flicked out the handball to Ollie Wines, who got it to Durden for Durden's goal. Just stuff like that, connective tissue stuff. Very, very quick thinking, good stuff. And then that stat line just backed up a game that I thought was actually very, very good between the lines. Again, no highlights for Joe Berry. He had to have a clanger on the wing that was on. I've got almost Wilson Gray, where he takes off, takes a bounce, and then gets tackled. And it's just like he's so close to break. Like you can just see, you can just see the magic that he's just still developing that stuff. But I had to give him the one vote. I just thought he's starting to show me some things. Well, he's actually been showing me things for weeks. But this game he showed me a lot of things, so I gave him the one vote. I've got Todd Marshall with the 2 votes. Possibly could have got it higher if he'd maybe doubled his intercepts in the first half or something like that. But there's nothing against him. But he had the 18 disposals at 77.8%. Disposal efficiency, he had the 8 marks, 10 intercept possessions, 9 rebound 50s, 464 meters gained, 3 score launches, and just I got again in those score launches, just some incredibly brave, decisive kicks through the middle that really, really broke the lines quite quickly for us to get quality scoring opportunities. So very, very good stuff from Todd Marshall. Got Willem Drew in 3 votes, 19 disposals, 11 of those contested possessions, 78.9% disposal efficiency. It was just very, very good disposal efficiency for kind of the role he was playing, with the fact he had 9 clearances, which is by far best on field for us. 5 from the centre, 4 stoppage, 6 score involvements, a couple 1%ers, 4 marks, 5 tackles, 22 pressure acts, 7 ground ball gets. A lot of these areas we're talking like best in the team or second best in the team. I think 22 pressure acts was only just behind someone who's going to come up in the votes very, very soon. And again, his ground ball gets were very, very close to the top of the team as well. So Willem Drew, for a player that at times last year and even and a couple of the games this year, we've kind of again gone like get him. Figure out the mix, because when Willem Drew's comfortable in the mix, he's very, very good. That clearance game from him is one of his best in the last 18 months. And again, just shows that when you get the mix right, Willem Drew can really, really work well with the clearance game and be kind of your ball winner in the middle, and then let the other guys go to work. So very, very good stuff from Willem Drew. The 4 and 5 was very, very difficult, but I've gone Jason Horne-Francis at 4. One of his better games ever, to be honest, considering the opponent and the occasion and what was on the, just the game it was. 28 disposals at 60.7%. So disposal efficiency down, but he was having one of those games where he's involved in a lot of contested work and just there's a couple of kicks where he's getting tackled as his body's getting slammed to the ground as he's taking the kick. 7 marks, 5 tackles, obviously 2 goals too. 7 score involvements, 502 metres gained. He had the 14 pressure acts himself. He had the 3 clearances, a couple from the centre with his 60% CBA time. So he finally got some CBAs and was able to get to work in there a little bit, and obviously be a contributor to the positive mix that we had this week. And my 5 votes, of course, goes to Zak Butters, leading the AFL Coaches Association Champion Player of the Year, and for good reason, with his 35 disposals, 16 contested possessions. He went at 74.3% disposal efficiency, so right there with the team average for both teams. 5 score involvements, 5 clearances, 7 intercepts, 4 marks, 5 tackles, 23 pressure acts, which is best on field for us, 11 ground ball gets, which is best on field as well. And of course, he kicks that absolute beauty of a goal as well, just to kind of just top it off with a little cherry on top of the game. Again, averaging a goal a game since gather round. Ever since the media just decided to start talking about maybe he's not worth that much money because he doesn't kick goals. He's just kicking a goal a game. So, Zak Butters, once again, best on field and, starting to get some very, very good plaudits for the fact that he's very, very much up there as one of the best players in the competition.
Fantastic votes. Some hard ones, probably more at the lower end of the votes. So honourable mentions obviously go to Ewan McKinlay, who we've spoken about, Miles Bergman playing his best game of the year, and hopefully a basis, like the bar, his minimum for the rest of the year. Lockie Jones can't play 5. I think he backed up his gather round game with another good performance. Ollie Wines, who I spoke about earlier, spotlighted 66% time on ground again, and he was one of those ones that had the 19 disposals as well. I've gone Joe Barry at 1 as well. I can't watch that. I can't watch that game and not give Joe Barry a vote. Yeah, and actually, I wrote a note. It wasn't quite Wilson Grayworthy, but in the second quarter, with 17 minutes on the clock, Joe Barry gets the ball, I think, whether at the centre or angling towards the half-forward flank, and he just absolutely burns 2 Hawthorn players and leaves them in his wake. Eat my dust type stuff. Just typified some of the efforts that we're speaking about, or some of the attributes is probably a better word to place on it, of why we think Joe Barry is tracking in the right direction. And then there was another opportunity later in the game where he got it centre half back region, if not sent to angling towards centre of centre half back. Took the mark, played on immediately. But again, burnt Hawthorn player, linking up. He is getting very high. And I think that's by design. They're obviously getting him exposed to stoppage. And I mean, high half forwards do get exposed to stoppage. That's just the modern game. But he was involved in a lot of link up, which is a good reward for effort, because we have noted that he's done a lot of running, but just hasn't been able to impact as much as he did on this game. And there was a lot of almost moments in Joe Barry's game, which is pleasing from the point of view that there's still more improvement to come, and what that could look like is very enticing. So yeah, Joe Barry, 1 vote for me. I put Drew at 2, maybe a little unfair, but yeah, we're huge Willem Drew advocates on this podcast. We always have been, and we always will be. Willem is a term of endearment in my household. Shout out to Dad. May he rest in peace. 3 votes goes to Todd Marshall. I just thought when the game was not there to be won, because there was many moments for the game to be won, but that second quarter in particular was just, the first half was just so good that it had a tangible impact on the game. Like, it made Hawthorn change their game plan because of what he was doing. And yeah, when it comes to champion data rating points, he was third best for us on ground, which kind of speaks to his impact on the game. Just over 460 meters gained, but going at 77.8% is just 14 kicks out of his 18 disposals. Like, great, 8 marks and 5 intercept marks, all the stuff that you've spoken about already. But just a sensational game for Todd Marshall, and a good indicator of what we want him to do. And hopefully, again, similar with Miles Bergman, hopefully now he's lifted that bar, and that's a standard that we can get used to. JHF at 4 as well for me. Totally agree with everything you said. I had a quick view on scoring statistics across the competition, and JHF is actually equal 4th for goal assists in the competition up to this point in the season, which I thought was fairly noteworthy, because obviously he started, from a handicap, so to speak, still gift styles. But not only is he contributing on the scoreboard now, he's got 8 goal assists for the season, which is, like I said, equal 4th with a fair contingent of players across the competition. But the stats are the stats, and I've gone Butters at 5 votes as well. Just a fantastic leaders game, bounce back game from the week that was, just go to woe, setting the example, 35 disposals. Yeah, I know JHF has been given the fan MVP, and in some eyes is the best on ground for him for his performance, but maybe I think the disposal efficiency probably gets Butters ahead overall for mine, on top of everything else that you listed in his stat sheet.
Yeah. It's one of those things. It's like chicken or the egg thing, but it's just like, can Butters go to work the way he does with that? I think the mix being right helped both of them elevate. But yeah, Butters, JHF would have more attention. It's just, again, we're picking between two guys that both got 8 coaches' votes. I think Watson got 8 as well, but the coaches' votes had like 3 players with 8 votes, which just goes to show the kind of game it was. And Butters and horne-francis both got the 8 coaches' votes. Unfortunately, we can't split it that way, so that's the way it's gone. So yeah, and I think again, to your point, I think Butters just. Yeah, you have 35 disposals at that level. We've talked about it. Possibly hasn't come up this much this year, but we've talked about it in the past where when you have that many disposals and you're still running at 3/4 efficiency, essentially, you've got to reward that kind of
output
level as well. So for me, that's just and some of those bursts from the center clearance and some of the little just random Butters things he was doing is and again he franked it with kicking a goal, which a couple of weeks ago he hadn't done that, and people were criticizing that. So
that's another meal.
It was a very, very classic. Yeah, and it's a very exactly, and a very really, really great finish as well. And speaking of Butters, as we get into closing out the episode, I'm probably one of the top contenders for the Peter Badco medal this weekend as we go into a Anzac round match, which of course is always a very, very important match in the Port Adelaide calendar, and it's much respect to the club for constantly kind of just taking on that as one of their main fixture requests, that they get the home match for the Anzac round, because of course Port Adelaide's both its history as an area as far as naval and the Anzac spirit and everything like that, but as well as the club having a history of being around for over 150 years now, and of course the over 160 members of the Australian Armed Services that have also played for the Port Adelaide footy clubs. Of course, I've got the Rover of Tobruk poster up in the background, which shout out to the producers of that film that hooked me up with the poster back when they dropped that. And go search out the Rover of Tobruk. It's a very, very 25-minute or so documentary about, of course, Bob Quinn, who played for Port Adelaide as well as won the went over to fight in World War II and with much heroism over in North Africa, and of course came back with many, many injuries that the doctor over in for the army didn't think he'd come back from to be able to play football, but of course won a Magarey medal and represented at state level and with much distinction for Port Adelaide after the war as well. But it's a very, very important round for the club. Of course, a very, very nice Guernsey that we've dropped for this year. Very, very subtle, but some nice touches as they honour 125 years of the Australian Navy as well. So it's a very, very important round for the club, and I'm looking forward to getting down there, of course, actually the game taking place on Anzac Day for us this year on Saturday, 6:05 against Geelong. Possibly one of the more low-key. We'll, of course, preview the match in full on Thursday, so check out the squad show on Thursday or Friday morning. But not too many ins and outs. I was surprised, by the way, Jamie, that we saw Lockie Jones. Of course, there was a little bit of the story about the interchange being exhausted and Lockie Jones having a bit of a niggle at the end of the game and not being able to get off the field because we'd exhausted our interchange allocation. Ollie Wines got a corky in the game, it seemed, and at one point looked like he was going to struggle to get back on ground, but played out of the game. Both of those guys aren't in the injury report.
Mm-hmm.
The injury report for the first time in weeks is relatively as expected. Just a couple of guys are nearing coming back. Just positive news on Harrison Ram and Asava Radaglia. So, do you predict any changes this week?
I think that Dante will probably go back out, and we'll probably just bring in a bit of extra leg speed, whoever that may be. I'm not really comfortable dropping Moraes. He had pretty low percentage time on ground. He was certainly utilised as that fill-in player, but even still, he still had, 11 disposals from, I want to say 40-odd% time on ground. I can't actually see on my...
For a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
I forgot to bring it up in the review, but loved him when there was a possible last disposal lasso on the boundary, and the commentators are going, would that go to the arc? And the Christian Murray is just standing on the boundary talking to the umpire. Like, that's like just his engagement. Again, we've loved like Christian Murray's being a footy guy.
He's switched on.
He's right away. He's right away into it. And he's kind of waiting on the boundary, like kind of like, and talking to the umpire. Not a dissent thing, but just kind of like, no, is this being reviewed or whatever? And then he finally kind of trots back for the stoppage because it gets, I don't know. But the commentators are going, oh, that's possible a last disposal thing. And Murray's was very like right switched onto it. So again, back to you. But I was just very, 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 very much enjoyed his engagement in the sport.
Yeah, I love him. I think he's got a bright future ahead of him. And when he gets his chance to spend more time on field, I think he rarely lets us down, to be honest, while being a raw talent. 11 disposals at like 90% disposal efficiency from 41% game time, which is all you can ask for from the 23rd player. I can't see who our emergencies were on my screen.
As well.
Yeah. No, preaching to the choir. So from a leg speed point of view, you're probably going a Jack Watkins, a Will Lorenz, or Jackson Mead. Yeah, I think it's fairly immaterial. The ruckman aside, because Geelong have Mitch Edwards, and then they use Blixarves as a chop out. But I think Sweet can manage in that environment with the Whitlock kind of chopping out. But at the end of the day, if they went unchanged, I'm not necessarily unhappy. The weather's supposed to be good. Touch wood, it stays that way. So, aerial play will be a bit more prolific or efficient. I don't envisage much change at all, apart from maybe Dante unluckily getting omitted for a small.
Yeah. It feels like one of the games that we played last week that deserves reward of consistency and the rare occasion that we get the opportunity to move forward with some consistency week to week. We don't have, the usual, often, last few weeks and last year, it seemed like injury precipitated enforced change, but we have a rare opportunity to just continue forward with a side that is relatively settled and played some good footy last week. And Vicentini again would probably be the only one that I would predict. But again, I guess we'll see. We've certainly been surprised before, but it'll be interesting. I do like doing this exercise of what we think. But I certainly would be, you'd think maybe a Watkins or co would be one of the guys to come back in because they've already gotten some trust this year and have had some good moments, or the likes of, if you do give a Lorenz or something a go as a reward for some effort in the sandful. So it just depends what they choose to do. If they do drop Vicentini, they might just decide to go forward with the mix and maybe take the opportunity to establish some dominance because they used the mix last week because they needed it, but this week it might be a chance to actually have some dominance of that area and frank that into some even better, a promising performance in midfield last week into something even better this week. So who knows? We will see on Thursday, which is very, very exciting. And of course, I think, speaking for myself, I'm excited to go for a game day every week, and certainly Anzac round is a special round as far as the occasion around it. But maybe this time last week, I was probably like, going to see us play Geelong might be. And again, I'm not going to be expecting too much out of the game, but I'm a little bit more excited and intrigued for the contest this weekend based on what we saw against Hawthorn last week. If they can kind of give the home fans that kind of effort, then, who knows what can happen with, Geelong dealing with a few issues themselves, injury-wise and otherwise with some players. So, it's an intriguing game coming up for us on Saturday evening. And, hopefully, as you said, the weather kind of holds out to what it's predicted to be at the moment and gives us a good weather to provide a good game. So, great review. Really, really enjoyed that. Thank you, Jamie, as always, for coming along on the journey. Yeah. Until next time, there's nothing else to say. It is just up to Aaron this week.
Count the pair.
Thanks for stopping by.